Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, Dr. Adrienne Battle, the director of Metro Schools, as schools go back to in-person instruction here in Davidson County. Dr. Battle, the governor kind of attacked the system, both you and in Memphis, for not being already open in person, saying you weren't following the science. I suspect you say you are following the science. How can you both claim that you are following the science? Somebody has to be wrong.
Well, I'll say this. I did have an opportunity to speak to the governor actually a couple of times in the last week or so, and I took the opportunity to really share with the governor and explain the metrics that we're grounding our decision-making process on here in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I'm not sure if he fully was aware or understood the measured approach we were taking, given our metrics that are released every morning by our Metro Health Department. So I took the opportunity to really ground him and the science and the data by which we have been making our decisions and will continue to make our decisions based upon as we move forward.
But apparently after you had that conversation, the governor set a firm deadline of February 15th that you and Memphis had to be back into classrooms. That seemed to be sort of threatening, and then his education commissioner sent you a kind of tartly worded letter saying you weren't spending the federal money that you'd gotten on that, and she was very concerned about that. Finally, state legislators are filing a bill that says if you're not back in person for a certain number of days this year, you could lose state funds. It sounds like war got declared.
Well, let's be clear here. I'll just politely share that in my conversations with the governor, there was never once a mandate or requirement placed on us to start school by February 15th. It was a coincidence, maybe, based upon our metrics and the conversations I had with the governor that indicated that we were likely soon to be returning our students to the in-person learning environment. I shared that with the governor on our call because days prior, I had notified both our staff and our parents that our metrics were declining and moving in the direction of which we needed to be under 7 to return our students to in person for those who chose to do so. With regards to our funding and the communication sent by the commissioner, I just want to be very clear about this as well. Tennessee is a reimbursement state when it comes to federal grants. That requires of us that once, in this particular case, as funds are allotted to us through the stimulus package, that we apply for use of those funds that have to be approved. Then we have to leverage our local funds to purchase any program services or personnel to meet the needs. And then we have to request to be reimbursed. So again, being very clear, and I've shared this with the governor, we'll be sharing with the commissioner very soon. At no point in time has Metro Nashville Public Schools sat on a pot of funds and not leveraged them to meet the needs of our students. We've continued to do that without any interruption to our services here in MNPS.
Governor Lee called a special session of the legislature. They passed several pieces of legislation he recommended that he thought would help turn around the learning loss that's happened and other issues around the pandemic for schools. What do you think about the bills that were passed? Are they good bills? Will they help? Because some of these numbers that we're hearing about the learning loss are pretty astounding, 65, 75%. I mean, those are big numbers. And I heard you say earlier that you thought some people were still thriving under virtual. So far, virtual learning, both here and across the country, has not gotten a very good reputation out of this.
Yeah, I think some of the legislation, I think there's a mixed bag, right? I think the intent here around addressing learning loss or learning progress for students, addressing literacy, addressing accountability, and compensation for our staff, I think those are all the right places to be having conversations around. What we need to be very careful of is not having unintended consequences now in the short term and in the long term on students. Anytime we're talking about taking and utilizing, leveraging one test in a high stakes manner to determine the future of students, I would highly caution us not to do that. It's important that we are proactive, not threatening to remove funds from schools and students who need it most, but pouring in investments to ensure not that we're retaining students, but that we were supporting them and providing them the high quality experiences that they deserve.
So you're okay about the mandatory summer camps and also the sort of gateway that will keep people, or students who don't read beyond the 3rd grade level, to keep them from what used to be called social promotion moving forward? What's the right way to go on those two issues?
Yeah, what I'm in agreement with is that as a district, we should be focused on providing instructional learning opportunities to students who need it most, making sure that we're leveraging up our core instruction and our interventions, because all of our students have very unique needs, and it is our responsibility to adjust our programming and instructional time to meet their needs. What I'm not in agreement with is the mandating of what should happen during that time or the length of day. Instead of just extending the school year in a normal way, we should be thinking about the unique needs of students and customizing those learning experiences for the students who need it most.
You got about a 55-45 split among students that will be coming back and those that are staying virtual. Do you have enough resources and staff members and folks like that to make sure you've got enough to handle the people when they come back into the classroom?
Yeah, when it comes to the supplies and PPE needed for our students and staff, we are well equipped and stocked in that space. So we have the supplies that we need for this initial phase in for our students and for our teachers. You know, prior to this pandemic, we already had issues with staffing as related to how we're funded and allocated staffing through our BEP formula. So this is something that we've struggled with as a large urban school district for years. And so this pandemic has not changed that need. We continue to advocate for and need additional staffing to make sure that we can meet the needs of our students.
But I noticed you actually made an appeal during your news conference to announce this plan that you wanted people to come and apply because you needed some people, I assume, in the area of substitute teachers, perhaps other kind of aides and assistants.
That's correct. I mean, you know, again, this was a need we had pre-pandemic, and it's definitely a need we have now. When we're talking about phasing students back into the in-person learning environment, what comes with that is our ability and the need for us to follow all CDC guidelines. CDC guidelines requires of us to quarantine and isolate staff members and teachers who might test positive or who have been exposed to the virus. That requires our staff to be out of their buildings, outside of their classrooms for multiple days. So we need trained certified teachers or volunteers who are interested in doing what's best for our students to step in and step up and help to do what's needed right now.
Dr. Adrienne Battle, the Director of Metro Public Schools, is our guest. Back to continue our conversation with her after you watch these messages.